pliers and a wrench.
We got a guest in the shop today, Mr. Rod Austin.
From Calhoun, Kentucky.
Yeah, Rod came from Calhoun, Kentucky with a truck full of gifts, tools,
Santa brings toys.
with all kinds of stuff, because Rod is tired of watching my damn videos about this panel truck. He's tired of watching me always break down. So Rod showed up from Kentucky to give us a hand, and we're gonna knock out some things on the panel truck. Let's walk over here and see what Rod's got going on.
I get accused of being Santa Claus all the time.
Right?
Yeah. So the deal is, so Mike's got a Ford 9-inch in his truck. Through the graciousness of a friend of his, Matt Marion, he let him borrow a differential. But the problem was it's got a full race spool in it with the 270 gear, and neither one of them really works for Mike's application. The race spool is not something you want to run on the street. It is, first off, it's dangerous in the water, in the rain, and also when you're turning, it makes both wheels turn evenly and it puts a strain on them. And that's part of Mike's problem. As y'all seen in his video, he broke a damaged wheel. And so I got a 57 Chevy that I set up a differential for, wasn't entirely happy with my gear choice, changed it, and thought Mike could use this in his truck. It's a more appropriate gear for his truck. It's a 325. I think it'll work better for his application than that 250. And it's it's an open, but it's a limited slip differential, so he'll be able to break them wheels apart and drive safely with it and much more comfortably. And also the other thing is he's got Ford 4.5-inch bolt pattern on the back, and he's got small Chevy on the front. So that's kind of a pain in the ass. So we're gonna re-drill these for the Chevy pattern on all the way around, and new studs in it, and put the differential in it. That's already assembled together. So hopefully in 2 days we can get this wrapped up and get it done. So right now I'm knocking studs out of here, and I've got a jig that I made here to help me find the centers of them. So let me get these studs knocked out, and I'll chat with you about how I figured this right here out and how that works. Just want y'all to know that sometimes them pretty nice big shows, they got it edited up so you don't see the fucking crazy shit that happens to them.
The slip.
Yeah, and they make it look slick, and it ain't always that slick. Sometimes we have fuck ups, and that's where we want to be organic.
That's right.
Okay, so about 4 years ago, I built a 57 Chevy, and I needed to re-drill my pattern the same way I had a 4.9-inch axle. I needed to re-drill it. I have drilled them in the past, like 25 years ago on drag race cars, but inevitably it was so hard for me to get them centered up without, a certain jig, without doing them the way that the pros do them. And so they would be really close, but they would bother me that I wouldn't have them absolutely dead centered. And so I got ready to drill the axles in my 57, and I thought I need a way to perfect that. And so somehow I got on the internet and saw something that triggered a thought process in me, and I decided to give it a try, and I made this jig because I'm a wood crafter by trade, is what I do. So, but the hot rodding things are like something I enjoy doing. It's interesting to note how that those two professions kind of, or a fabricator and a wood guy, kind of overlap a lot. So I use wood sometimes as my rescue. And so what I did was I went out to the shop and I thought about it, and I thought I need to center off of this register because it's dead true center. So I took a piece of oak that I had and I clamped it up on my wood lathe and spun it out because I knew it would be centered, and cut the hole here that would center off this register here. And then what I thought was, if I lay that down there, these are already spaced out exactly right. The thing is, we need to put the new holes in between the old ones. And so what I did was I found like an old stud, like here, and then I cut the end off and ground it out So I ended up with like a location pin right there. So the location pin fits in here in any one of those holes. I lay it down on there, and then what I did on the lathe was, while I had it on there, I found the 4 3/4 circumference of the center line and turned it and made a groove on it, so I knew that that's where that 4 3/4 was in reference to the center. So then all I had to do was just drill this hole and press this pin in, and then somewhere, it didn't really matter, about halfway, about in the center here, then I laid this down there, and then I kind of marked about in the center and drilled me the first, and so I decided to use like an 1/8 inch hole, like to start with, because I thought a small hole is easier to drill and it won't wander as much. And so I laid this, so I put my location pin on there, drilled that hole right there, through there. Then all I did was take and turn this and put that in like in the other hole and drill up from there to create another hole. So I used my original hole then to create holes in my wood, turn it again, put it in there, drill there, and every time I kept evenly spacing out holes in this based off of the reference of the original holes. So then, just to double check them, I would take my micrometer and measure across, and I got pretty good measurement, so I felt good about it. So then I lay this on there, and then I run the drill bit down through here, and make a little bit of mark. Don't make a lot, and make a reference, just a little dot, and then pick this up, and then turn it one and drill again, and pick this up and turn it here, and then drill again, and keep going all the way around until you get all the way around. And then I would take my calipers and fine tune it in even more to make sure all my dots were exactly the same distance apart. And if they were, that was a good sign, I was in good shape. Plus, I would also measure off the side of this register here to the center, and I would double check it like here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And that was like a second opinion. So once I did that, then I knew I had all the little holes like right, and then I came in here and drilled, took all my holes and I had them transferred through the block here. Well, then I took one of the next holes and drilled it up to like a 1/4 inch or 5/16. I think I used 1/4 inch, and I took a piece of brake line to drive it in there that would help me keep the drill bit from wandering and help it keep it
Good
straight
idea.
up, kind of like a guide.
Yeah.
And then I would drill all these holes, spin it around, and go around again with a 1/4 inch bit. And then I used an old lug nut and drilled out 7/16 or pretty close to that in the center here. And then I went back around again, using all these as a reference, and then drill each one of those out using my 7/16 bit, then to go all the way around. And that kind of kept it stable and kept it guided. So I knew I needed something to help me keep my drill bit centered in the most hillbilly engineering way that I could think of.
I think it's brilliant.
And when I got it done, I checked them, and I actually seemed really good. I was surprised. Because at best I can do is barely good enough, the way I look at it. So it worked out good, and I haven't used that since. And when Mike had this issue here, I said, I was hesitant to drill them because I'd rather somebody do them with an actual mill, the way they're supposed to be. But Mike seems a lot like me. He struggles, he needs help, and he's an awesome dude. And sometimes we just need to reach out and pick up people and carry them and put them in a better place, because one day they'll do that to us.
I appreciate it.
So anyway, that's what I thought. And so I got with Mike and I said, hey, let me help you. So I tested my jig out and it worked. So we've got one of them here already drilled. Now you may ask, you're probably thinking all along, what about the center one? Well, that's where Mike's gonna come in, because we're gonna cut a plug of steel and put in here and weld this up and then drill that one out. And then we'll drill a hole in that one. But that's what we got so far. We're gonna open these on up to a 1/4 inch and then open them up. I think it's a 15-30 seconds. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, it's a 15-30 seconds to get the actual press in diameter, so the studs will press in.
Dig that.
So that's what we're working on, and we're going to continue to drill these out. And anyway, we'll catch y'all a little bit later. My drill bit lengthened out here. Still ain't long enough.
That's what she said.
She talks too much. I told her that from the beginning. Man, oh, wait a minute.
Are we hitting a hole?
We're hitting a hole.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go around and just lightly dot them. I mean, technically, a more accurate way is to do this, turn it, stay in that same drill hole, come over here, and that way you know you're drilling all of them through the same hole. But I have went around and used the other holes, and they actually lined up pretty well. So, but we're going to go this route from this one. And really all we're doing is just putting a witness mark on it right now, because I don't want to drill it and commit just yet. Snug. All right, let's see what we got. You're gonna make me out to be a genius or a liar here in just a minute. So let's see what we got. So we lay it down in the center, tighten that up. That looks pretty good to a blind man, which I am these days. I used to have great vision, you know. I could sharpen an 1/8" drill bit with no glasses. And nowadays, I can't sharpen a 1/2 inch unless I have some glasses. It's awful. That looks good.
Yeah.
You want to get close up, Mike? That looks good. Let's go here. That's off just a tad bit right there. Just a tad. But I still think it's doable.
Yeah.
So we're going to drill these, and then we're going to let Mike weld these up, and then we'll take care of these. Okay. All right, so here's Mike, and I'll let him tell you what we're going to do here.
All right, so like we talked about earlier, one of those studs lands directly on what is normally the access hole to take the retainers out. So we cut out a slug.
And as you can see, we already have the holes drilled there, and there. So that leaves that one, the hole to go there.
Absolutely. So we're going to weld this up. Now, here's a question for Rod. Well, first, we left gap around it. That's intentional.
Correct.
So that we can get proper penetration.
Correct.
Because this, of course, is a pretty thick piece of steel. It's pretty serious.
Almost 3/8 thick, yeah.
Yeah, so we put in essentially the same thickness as steel, but left a gap so that I can fill the gap, overlay some weld, and get it nice and smooth. But the question for Rod is so what about the access hole to tighten down?
You're not going to have it.
You're not going to have it at
So
all.
you
basically just do a shallow well socket behind the...
No, you do a box end wrench or an open end wrench.
A box end wrench?
Yeah, because
Okay.
that restricts your ability to ever put a socket on it again, which is not a big deal. The socket makes it super convenient. The access hole for the socket makes it super convenient. But now you'll always have to use a box end wrench, which is not a big deal.
No.
It's easy.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw some welds on this bad boy, get it all cleaned up and smooth. We'll show you the finished product. I'll of course weld the top side, flip it over, weld the bottom side, and get it nice and smooth. And so Rod can continue drilling his holes.
Yep. Yeah, we left that gap in there intentional. I don't know that we told them why, so that we've got room for filler. We don't.
That's right.
You know, we need room to actually get some molten metal in there, so it actually gets the penetration and bonds it.
Yeah, and what I'll do first is I'll basically just melt this piece in there. No real filler rod. I just keep it in my hand just in case. And plus, it's natural to me.
Which is the beauty of TIG.
Yeah, that's right. So at first we'll make a pass, no filler rod, and just melt it in. And then we'll come back and we'll build it up with rod.
I just want to say I've done this before with a stick welder, and I've had success out of it, but obviously the TIG is far superior. Somebody needs to cue Man for Man, Blinded by the Light right now. It is so quiet.
Right?
It's not like a BuzzBox welder.
So relaxing.
Yeah, it seems like it would be. Okay.
All right, so if you look, you can see we got quite the ditch going down in there, and that's just fusion welded together, right? That's so I can get deep penetration. Then I'll come back with some filler rod and level that on out.
All right, looks great.
All right.
And that looks sweet. So what we need to do is probably, like you said, I guess that's, you said this, dress that weld down so we get a good flat surface, because our wheel, or the drum needs to mount on that flat.
Right.
We cannot have a hump, or else it's going to be riding on that high spot.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go grind that down, and then we'll be back later. So now he's going to get the back side of it. It's so strange for me because I come from the world of stick welding everything, or MIG welding, but you always have a certain sense of a certain sound of bacon frying or sizzling or something when you weld. And it's so strange for me, coming from that stick welding world, that I don't hear that when you're doing that.
Right.
It's very quiet.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
It's almost like it sounds like air is just leaking out of the line is all it is.
Right. That's one of the things I love about TIG welding. That and the cleanup process is so much nicer.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's very clean.
You know, with the stick welder or whatever, you know, you'll be cleaning up for a good minute. Same thing with the MIG welder. With this, it's so much lighter.
So you let that blow on it to cool it down?
Yeah.
Which is something me and Mike were talking about earlier. You weld up the axles. See, these axles are heat treated from the factory, and that's what gives them their strength, where they don't just break on you, you know. But you don't want to quench them. Like if they're super hot like that, do not quench them. Just let them cool down on their own, because you can damage the heat treating. So would you say that TIG welding is similar to, as far as the technique, similar to like soldering maybe?
Yeah, to an extent. You know, the technique, you know, it has its similarities for sure. You know, you basically create a hot puddle, and then as you're going, you add in material. So in that aspect, it's similar. It's definitely a more controlled welding than MIG and stick welding.
I'd say that smoke is the oil burning out of
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not a friend to welding anyway.
No.
That's
yeah.
impurities and dirty nastiness.
That's right.
It makes welding harder. It doesn't. It's like an impurity. Then it gets in the metal. Doesn't want to let it flow. You know, it doesn't want to let it bond. So
let that bad boy cool down and normalize, and then we'll grind it smooth and get it nice.
all right, on to the next.
Yeah.
So what am I going to talk about?
That's a good question. What are you talking about?
So we got these drilled and we got the rims put on there. I put the rims on there just to double check. And one way that helps me to double check is I'll take a drill bit. So this drill bit's a little bit fat, but I'll take a drill bit, and if it'll fit down in there all the way around, then I know I'm in pretty good shape. So we got this fitted where the drill bit fit all the way around, and then tighten these down. So we feel good about the spacing. I mean, I feel really good about that. So what we're up to next is we're going to have these drums turned because they're a bit rough. We're gonna have those turned probably tomorrow. Well, soon, okay. In the video world, tomorrow is now.
Yes, that's right.
And so then we're gonna, but we're gonna probably go ahead and get the differential changed out and get that done. I'm good for doing it right now, and then we'll get the axle shoved back in it, and we'll be well on our way to being done. And you know, this thing it's moved a little quicker than I thought, but I gotta say, Mike, I was like, man, when is it? Are we gonna ever get done with this? What's taking so long?
What's taking so long?
Jeez, you're killing me over here. What's taking so long? I can't afford this stuff. But anyway, so we're all good.
Cool.
So we're good. On to the next thing.
Yeah.
So one thing we forgot to add was when we pulled the axles out, we found one of the bearings that wasn't in the very best of shape. In fact, I felt very uneasy about it. So we replaced the bearing on it and feel good about that now. So we got all these drilled out. You can see all of these out, and we had to drill the drums out. See, Mike asked me an important question the other day. He says, well, what about the spacing on these holes on the drums? The spacing matters, but you don't have to be nearly as accurate as you do with this, because really all you want to do is keep that drum centered on the axle, and the register then will do that here. So when we drop that down on there, like so, it'll go, and that keeps it centered. So if the holes are just a little bit big, it's not going to matter. It's not going to let it move around, you know, and that's fine. So we're good with that, and we're going to be on to the next. So
What are we doing, Rod?
oh, we are surprised by the camera, number one. But number two, we are bolting on, we're bolting in the axles that we have worked on diligently and hopefully got it all right. And I'm finishing up on this one right here. And I'm going to go to the other side and do it. So we've got the third member installed. This hardworking guy, he helped me put it in here. He's amazing. I'll hire him in a second. His name is, I think his name was Mike Abbott.
I heard that guy wasn't worth a shit.
I take issue with that. I believe I'd hire him. Just saying. Anyway, so I'm going to lay here and take a nap because I'm tired and I'm old and I'm stiff. But anyway, so we're going to get the brake drums on here and get the wheels bolted on here in just a second, and get the drive shaft in it. I'm going to hire Mike to put the drive shaft in it.
Sweet.
And so we're going to get some oil in it. In fact, we should do that here in a minute before we put the other axle in. Okay. Anyway, We're gonna put some oil in it and get this thing ready to roll, and then we're gonna tackle the valve covers and a little trinket stuff and be done with this project pretty soon.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Mikey, so where are we at right now?
The rear end is finished.
Oh, look at him. He's ghostly. It's ghostly. It is. So, one thing I was asking you, I was thinking you were over there working on something, and I had a serious question, like, why is this job taking so long?
That's a good question. I get that question a lot.
Why is this job taking so long? If you don't get with it, we are going to lose the shop.
We are.
And I don't even have any dig in the shop.
Yeah, well.
But it's still going to be lost somehow.
I mean, technically you do have a dig in the shop.
All right, so where we're at is we got valve covers installed on it. Here's what we noticed, and here's I'll give y'all a little tip. Hold on. So here's a little tip for y'all. Here's what we noticed. So Mike had a leak in his valve covers, and they seemed like they were in good shape, and we wondered why. And what I noticed was his other valve covers, if you can see, let me zoom this in. Whoa!
That is way zoomed.
Okay, right there, if you'll notice the valve cover is notched right here, and most of them are notched from the factory, right there, okay? So it's there, and then over there is the same way. So they do notch them from the factory, but oftentimes they don't notch them enough, and sometimes then the side of that intake manifold, the aluminum casting, protrudes out a little bit farther, and that causes further complications. So you got to pay close attention to that, and apparently on his, even though they were notched, it was still touching right there, and you could see evidence because the metal was bent right there where that bolt is, and that was evidence that it was hitting. So we think that's why they were probably leaking, and
that adds at least 87 horsepower.
Really?
Yes. It's a secret ninja trick.
I'm gonna have to buy one of those. Do you have any of those for sale?
I do. Actually, there's one laying up here somewhere.
Oh, here it is.
There it is.
Special, y'all, $19.95 for yours online today. Okay.
87 horsepower.
Yeah. So anyway, so we got the valve covers put on, and we're good to go there. So now we're going to address the problem of the dipstick tube. And here's what I have found out, Mikey. I'm gonna let you have the camera and let you interview me for a little while.
There we go.
So here's what I found out. I claim to be no super expert, but I have fucked around with automotive shit for 30 plus years. And in the beginning, I admit, I tried to use silicone, as I call it, to seal dipstick tubes, and it just does not work. People think it does, and the beginners will use it. It does not work. You really need the proper O-ring type seal, which I have somewhere here. And we're going to put that in, a new one, and it needs to fit snug and tight, and you should use no sealer on it. It should seal on its own. And you really need to bolt the dipstick down in the block to make sure it stays down in the block. And that's another problem. And we think that's probably why it's leaking. Plus, it's a chrome dipstick tube, and as everybody knows, chrome does not seal very well.
Or get you home.
Yeah, true.
Chrome.
It might pick up some chicks on the way.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Chicks don't like old cars.
Okay.
That's a myth.
Yeah, you're right. So anyway, we're going to try to clean some of that chrome off and put a seal tube on it and get that fixed. And hopefully at this point we'll be, we got to tighten up front wheel bearings on it. It just goes to show you, when you get underneath them, touch and feel stuff, then that seems if it's right. You never know when you'll find something that just don't look right, and those need to be snugged up a couple flats on the nut. So anyway, we're good to go, and we'll keep you tuned in.
Absolutely.
Peace out.
Back to me. I did chrome. I did silicone the dipstick, and I did. Oh fuck! Hold on. I did silicone the dipstick, and I did not bolt it down. So Rod's fixing what I screwed up. So, anyways, back to it.
Mikey's still a good guy. So we're going to take a little road trip. We got everything tidied up. We're going to let Craig, oh my gosh, Mike give us some commentary on what he thinks about it.
Well, I can tell you already, just pulling it out of the shop, turns way better. Way better. That spool was pretty gnarly on it. Seems to be running great.
So I'm wondering, like you notice a difference in the takeoff since we changed the gear. We went from a 270 to a 325.
Yeah, it's definitely more heavy on the lower end. Yeah. For sure. Absolutely.
It did feel decent when you took off.
Yeah.
But you know, that's coming from a big block guy with overdrive, so
Right, yeah,
so it is respectable now for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good.
I'm glad it doesn't make any noise, although I admit it is hard to tell in here. It is a noisy truck,
Yeah.
you know, but
Very tinny.
so yeah, so the gear, you know, I had that set up. I set it all up new. I put about 2,000 miles on it when I decided the gear choice really wasn't optimal for my application. And that's why I shifted it over to Mike, and thought it would suit him much better than me. So it's already broke in. I don't have to worry about, is it going to break down on you? And so if it does, it's your fault because you would break a rock.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
So I feel like I at least gave you a good product and helped you out.
Yeah.
Get your truck in a better place.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Especially pulling that camper, because when you start pulling that for long distances,
Yeah.
you gotta have something dependable, and we'll handle it.
And I'm going to be pulling it to Georgia to do that chop class.
Wow.
So here in the next month and a half, I'll be pulling it a good place.
Wow.
So.
Action, and we are back. Me and Mike went to have some lunch, and we were chatting about some things after we got done with the truck, and it seems to work out really good.
Yeah, truck is good.
When he turned, it felt like he was happy, not in a bind, and we talked about that. But me and Mike were talking about something when we had lunch, and it kind of centered around this right here. And I'm not trying to show this off to be ego, but sorry, but we were talking about the practicalities of hot rodding and why people build what they build, and why they do what they do. And we were discussing the fact that we re-drilled those axles, and logically it doesn't make sense to do that, because when you can buy axles on the aftermarket for about $300 a pair,
Right.
and you probably get a little bit better axle maybe, but you get multi-bolt patterns in them,
Yeah.
and you know, you don't have to drill them and all that.
You know, I had to weld them.
Yeah, you don't have to weld them. Why would you do what we did? It is true that is the feasible option for some people. It was for me in my 57, because I damaged one of the axles from the bearing, and it was just time to move on to something else. But sometimes your situation doesn't allow that for whatever reason, and you do stuff on your own. Because for me, it was always a lack of money. I didn't, you know, I had limited materials around me, and the bottom line is, how can we make this work today?
Right.
Here in this shop with what we have around us, how can we make this work? And so that's the mentality I've always had doing things, and so that's what happened with this right here, like as I described earlier. You know, to drill like a drill out jig for the axle. I'm a carpenter, a woodworker, and I've always taken an issue with my woodworking and how I apply it to the mechanical. I've always felt like my woodworking belongs over here and the mechanical belongs over here, and those two don't really belong together.
Right.
And I've had a hard time making peace with that. I can mix those together and make it work.
Yeah.
And people like Mike have kind of reassured me and told me that that's a good thing. So anyway, and that's how I made this, was being a woodworker and turning it on the lathe. But we were talking about how that other people just don't seem to have that ability or take the time to figure that out. And it's just something I did because out of necessity that I had to. Mike seems to tell me over lunch that he thought it was genius.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, you know, it's like with the stuff Mike's got here. He step out of the way so they can see of the hot rod that he's building here. It is a project to build a car and come in under $5,000.
Right.
So that means you have to use what you got. You
Yeah.
can't go buy stuff all the time.
Yeah, and that's, for me, that's like the roots of it. When we were doing this with the axles, of course, my buddy across the street, Jeff at Powerhouse, which, you know, I have a lathe, but, you know, I'm not a machinist by any stretch.
And Powerhouse is an auto repair facility.
Yeah, they're an auto repair shop, but Jeff has done all that, and he's like, man, why didn't you just come over here and use the lathe and mark it out, and we could have knocked this out real quick. And yeah, I knew I could do that. One, I didn't want to inconvenience him. He's trying to run a business over there. But also, for me, doing stuff like this is important because it's the roots of where hot rodding came from.
A certain pride.
And this, where all of this came from, is the old world way of doing it. Yeah, you can go order the axles, but like for most of my life, like that wasn't even an option. We had junk parts laying around, and how can we make these parts work for what we got? And that's always kind of been the essence,
The art of it.
Yeah, of what we do. Yeah, you can go order it from a catalog. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not downplaying ordering from a catalog, because in reality,
sometimes it's a smart move, sometimes it's not.
Right, and it just depends on what your funds are and what you can do, or if you're willing to wait the time or not willing to wait the time. You know, like most of my cars, I like driving my car, so like, how can I fix it now with what I got? And not have to wait 2 weeks or whatever it is. Well, shipping's pretty quick these days. But anyway, despite that.
And another thing was, we were talking about the younger generation, or maybe the less, the people have the less money. They see us and think, wow, you guys are so lucky and amazing that you've got these amazing cars. And we're discussing, like, you could do that too, if you have some ingenuity, which comes from shit like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you have some ingenuity, that sometimes that ingenuity takes the place of the dollar.
Right.
So if you have low dollars to spend, you can add a lot to it with your ingenuity.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, we see these TV shows that give us a false sense of reality.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, they are inspirational. I don't want to take that away from them, but they can also deflate us and kill us.
Yeah.
Because we see them like build an engine, and they got forged crankshaft, you know, $1,000 crankshaft and a $2,000 set of heads, and they're like, all you gotta do is just go buy this and get this and this and this, and this is what we got for our package. And years ago, I would watch that, and right from the beginning, I was like, I've already failed, because I can't afford any of that.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was a failure. It just took my thunder, and I felt like I was always against the struggle of it, and it kind of made me just want to give up and say, I'm just going to go do something else. You know, something. But I can't do that because I can't afford it. And along the way, for me not having the money and the funds, I learned how to figure a way around it, build a better mousetrap.
Right.
You know, you have an obstacle in front of you, don't let it stop you, figure a way around it.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Yeah, I had the same experience with those TV shows. You know, you'd watch them and, you know, they got 10 or 15,000, or even like, and I hate to call names to TV shows, but I'm going to anyways. You know, like Monster Garage was really big, right?
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to get a group of guys in here, and I thought the essence of that was really cool. That it was just a group of guys that weren't even like related or friends or whatever, come together and they build these crazy vehicles. But then at the end of the show, you know, it was always like, we got to build it under this budget. But then they would give you the freebie value, right? The sponsor money.
Yeah, not tell you how many of those parts were donated to.
Well, they would. They would say, you know, this motor, $15,000, freebie, this motor, blah, 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 freebie, you know, like, and then at the end of it, they'd be like, total cost of the build, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, $78,000 freebie value, whatever. And it just gave you this, like, this sense for me anyways, and obviously for you, it's like, there's no way I can do that. I can't afford that.
Not to mention the editing process. And when you talk about video, there's always editing. Editing can be a good thing, but you can also use editing to make you look like you're better than you are.
Yeah, for sure.
And so as we shown on this truck, oh, and by the way, I want to make this clarification. I was wrong about the dipstick tube. I just thought about it. I mean, I was right that you need to be careful how you install it. But on his truck, the dipstick tube was not leaking. It was a transmission line going into the transmission was loose. The fitting was loose. So I want to retract my, here's what you did wrong, Mike.
Yes, yes. So I successfully silicone the dipstick. Doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
It just don't leak.
We're going to leave it the way it is and not mess with the, we're not going to poke the barrier. We're going to leave it alone.
If it ain't broke, don't
yeah,
fix
and
it.
if it leaks later, then we'll fix it. But we did fix the line.
Yeah.
So anyway, so where's I going with this? Talking about the editing of the process and how they make it look like they built an entire car in 2 or 3 days.
Right.
It just don't work that way.
Yeah.
I've worked my hands in woodcraft and done some pretty nice things. I humbly say that. And people have no clue the time that I put into it. First off, then the thought process I went through to even design what I was making before I cut one piece of wood.
Right.
And then I get it done, and they're like, "Oh, it's amazing," and they don't understand that. And the same with Mike, who makes nice metal stuff. Mike is the metal guy. I'm the wood guy. Is what it works.
Right.
So, but I feel this way on hot rods and cars. People build this stuff, and you know it takes longer. And why are you not done? Why is it taking so long?
Why is it taking so long? And the thing that people don't understand is like, and I will say this. I'm going to say this about this industry. If you're getting into this industry and hoping to make $1 million and be rich and famous and all that other stuff, you're getting in for the wrong reason.
You're better off to play the lottery.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. It is a lot of hard work.
It is.
You do your best to make an honest living at this. At least me, that's my experience, and really most of the guys that I know. And I know some pretty successful people in the hot rod industry, but even still, you know, they're not spending summer times in the Bahamas. They're working for everything that they got, and I think a lot of times the media will mislead you on that. And what people don't see is like, okay, so when I clock out here, in fact, Rod seen this just the other day. Well, I had some design stuff that I need to do, so I'm going home and I'm drawing designs until midnight. You know, trying to engineer out these things that I'm doing during the day. Well, who you charge for that?
And who sees that?
Right.
Nobody.
You know, you can't.
But
go
you
to the
still have
customer
to
and be
do
like,
it.
Well, look, while I was sitting at home, I was drawing your car for 4.5 hours, so you need to pay me 4.5 hours. It's just not how it is. So you know, if you're getting into this, make sure it's your passion and what you love, and you'll never come up short-handed if you're doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm happy about Mike's truck. I came here this weekend to help him out, and I have an agenda and a target, and I felt like I hit that. It was successful. We found a few things that needed some maintenance that we were able to fix.
Yeah.
And I feel successful, and I'm happy about that. And you know, and that's with me, Mike, is in what I do. I'm a struggling guy who struggles to get along. If I wasn't struggling, I wouldn't be making all this stuff.
Right.
But I also know that, you know, it's always wise to help other people, and I'm not saying Mike's broke ass. I'm saying the fella just needed some help.
Mike's a broke ass.
He just needed some help. And sometimes that help is emotional, and sometimes it's, you know, physical.
Yeah.
But I know there'll be a day when somebody will help me, and that's why I try to pay it forward.
Yeah,
And I believe in
sure.
paying it forward.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it greatly. You saved me at least one time on the side of the road, at least. That front wheel bearing probably saved me from being on the side of the road next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't thank you enough. It's been fun. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
I needed it for sure. Yeah, it's awesome.
So I guess there's nothing else to say, but we'll see y'all on the flip. Me and Mike got 2 vintage campers, and we're going to go camping throughout the summer and pulling our campers with our rigs.
That's right. That's right. And tomorrow we are doing shop nights. So
Yeah, shop nights is a wonderful thing. I live up in Western Kentucky. I'm about 4.5 hours away from here, and I don't get to participate in them nearly as often as I'd like to. But where I come from, there's car people there. You know, you usually see them at the racetrack, something like that. But they don't have a group where they get together like these guys do. I found that the community and the fellowship of that very refreshing.
Yeah.
And so it's something I needed. And so these guys are very talented. Ricky Neal, Matt Marion, good deal. I'm just mentioning the guys that I've met so far.
Yeah.
Mike Abbott, Tommy Bourne is a legend as far as I'm concerned around here.
Sure.
You know,
And Greg.
yeah, those guys, what they handcraft. I mean, you know, for me, it comes down to a handcrafted thing. Whether you're working in metal or wood or music or video or whatever you're doing, Sean Brereton, it is a handcrafted talent to help make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So shop nights is a wonderful thing where they get together, camaraderie, car stuff, and it's a wonderful thing.
So what Rod's saying is believe everything you see on TV about Memphis. This is a terrible, dangerous place, and you should never move here.
Nah, it ain't that bad. I come here.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Peace
We'll see
out,
you guys
y'all.
later. Bye.